The village of Udi was peaceful but overshadowed by an unspoken fear of the sacred river, Sukudu. Rumor had it that anyone who dared to go too close to the riverbanks would fall under a curse. And then there was Amaka, the healer who lived in a small hut near the water, isolated and shrouded in mystery. The villagers avoided her. They said her remedies were powerful, but that her connection to the river gave her unnatural abilities. Children were warned not to stray too close to her home, and adults whispered of strange happenings whenever she passed by. Yet, she was the only one with knowledge deep enough to cure ailments the local medicine men couldn't handle. When Chinedu returned to Udi after hearing of his mother's illness, he was heartbroken to find her weak and bedridden. No doctor in the city had a solution, and the village healers had given up hope. But Chinedu refused to accept this. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the trees, he overheard some men discussing Amaka. They spoke of her abilities with both fear and grudging respect. It didn't take long for Chinedu to make his decision. If she can save my mother, I don't care what the villagers say, Chinedu muttered to himself, heading toward the path that led to Sukudu. Amaka's hut stood alone, surrounded by the whispering river and tall, dense trees. As Chinedu approached, he noticed the soft scent of herbs in the air and heard the distant sound of water flowing gently. Gathering his courage, he knocked on the wooden door. Amaka opened the door, her face calm and kind, not at all what he expected. She was younger than the villagers had described, with a serene presence that put him at ease immediately. Chinedu, son of Uju, I have been expecting you, she said softly, motioning for him to enter. Surprised, Chinedu stepped inside, his heart pounding. How could she know who he was? I know why you've come, she continued. Your mother is ill, and you seek a cure. But the river does not give its blessings freely. There is a balance that must be kept. Chinedu swallowed hard, unsure of what that meant. Please, help me. I'll do whatever it takes. Amaka's eyes softened. I will help you, but you must be willing to face the truth behind the river's curse. Only then can you save her. Chinedu listened intently as Amaka prepared herbs over a small fire in the corner of her hut. The crackling of the flames and the distant hum of the river seemed to merge into a rhythm that calmed his nerves. The curse on the village is old, older than you or I, Amaka began, her voice steady. Many years ago, the people of Udi offended the spirit of Sukudu. They took more than they were given and ignored the river's warnings. Since then, the river has demanded a price. For every life it saves, it takes something in return. Chinedu's brow furrowed. What did they take? Amaka glanced at him briefly before returning to her work. They built their farms too close to the water and cut down sacred trees. The river warned them, but they didn't listen. When the floods came, many lives were lost. Since then, the balance has been off, and the river demands retribution. Chinedu felt a chill run down his spine. So, if you help my mother, will the river demand another life? Amaka paused for a moment before answering. It may. But there are ways to restore balance without sacrifice. There is a rare plant, kenga, that grows deep in the forest. It's sacred to the river, and if we can retrieve it, the curse may be lifted, and your mother will recover. Chinedu didn't hesitate. Tell me where to find it. I'll go. Amaka smiled faintly. It won't be easy. The path is treacherous, and only those with pure intentions can retrieve the kenga. But if you are willing, I'll guide you. Without wasting time, Chinedu and Amaka set out that night, making their way into the dense forest. The moon cast an eerie glow on the path ahead, and every rustle of the leaves seemed to echo through the silence. Despite the danger, Chinedu was determined. His mother's life depended on it. Hours passed as they navigated through thick undergrowth and towering trees. Amaka's knowledge of the forest was remarkable. She moved effortlessly, guiding Chinedu around hidden dangers. Finally, they reached a small clearing where the kenga plant stood, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Chinedu bent down to pluck the plant, but Amaka stopped him. Wait. The river must grant its blessing first. If it does, we can take the plant. If not. Her voice trailed off, leaving the rest unsaid. Chinedu nodded, taking a deep breath. He knelt by the plant and whispered a prayer, asking the river for its mercy. For a long moment, nothing happened. The air was thick with tension, and Chinedu's heart pounded in his chest. Then, the sound of the river's gentle flow grew louder, filling the air with a soft hum. The plant began to glow brighter, and Amaka nodded. The river has accepted your plea. You may take it. Chinedu carefully uprooted the kenga plant, cradling it in his hands as if it were a fragile treasure. Relief washed over him, but there was still a sense of unease in the air. Let's go, Amaka said quietly. We don't have much time. By the time they returned to Udi, dawn had begun to creep over the horizon. Chinedu's body ached from the journey, but he pressed on, his thoughts focused on one thing: his mother. Amaka wasted no time. She took the kenga plant and began mixing it with other herbs, her hands moving swiftly with practiced precision. Chinedu watched anxiously as she brewed the remedy over the fire. The air was thick with the scent of the forest, and the soft bubbling of the mixture gave him a strange sense of hope. After what felt like hours, Amaka poured the potion into a small bowl and handed it to Chinedu. Give this to your mother. It will heal her. Chinedu took the bowl, his hands trembling. Thank you, he whispered, his voice heavy with emotion. He rushed back to his mother's side, finding her still weak and barely able to speak. Gently, he helped her sip the mixture. For a moment, nothing happened. Chinedu's heart sank, fear gripping him tightly. But then, slowly, color returned to his mother's cheeks. Her breathing steadied, and her eyes fluttered open. Chinedu, she whispered, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. Tears welled up in Chinedu's eyes as he smiled down at her. Mama, you're going to be okay. The village was soon buzzing with the news of his mother's miraculous recovery. People who had once shunned Amaka began to view her differently. She was no longer seen as the strange woman by the river, but as a healer who had saved one of their own. Still, Chinedu couldn't shake the feeling of unease. What about the river's demand for balance? Would it come for someone else now? One evening, a few days after his mother's recovery, Chinedu returned to Amaka's hut to express his gratitude and seek answers. He found her sitting by the riverbank, her eyes reflecting the water's gentle flow. I know the river demands something in return, Chinedu said cautiously. What will it take? Amaka smiled softly, her gaze never leaving the water. The river has already taken what it needs. It wanted the people of Udi to remember the balance between giving and taking. Your willingness to face the truth, to retrieve the kenga with pure intentions, has restored that balance. Chinedu let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. So, the curse is lifted. Amaka nodded. For now, the river is at peace. The village will flourish again. With those words, a sense of relief washed over Chinedu. The fear and tension that had lingered in the air for so long seemed to dissolve. The villagers began planting their crops, the river flowed calmly, and the fields yielded more than they had in years. Chinedu's mother grew stronger each day, and the village came together to celebrate the newfound harmony. Amaka became a respected figure, no longer feared, but admired for her wisdom and kindness. Chinedu often visited her, and a deep friendship blossomed between them. In the end, the river's curse had been broken not through sacrifice, but through understanding, courage, and the willingness to make amends. The village of Udi thrived once more, and peace reigned along the banks of Sukudu.
If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe.